poetic introduction in which he talks about, what is the proper attitude people should have towards the dead. And obviously I'm not going to read the whole sort of thing. It's very long and very flowery, but it's very introspective and philosophical, because he says, how should people react to the loss of a loved one? Should they go too much in this direction or too much in that direction? Should they go nuts over it? On the other hand, should they be very apathetic towards it? It's not easy to come up with the proper attitude. For those who are able to, I invite you to read it. He says, the people who are too apathetic and the people who are too emotional about it, both of them are going in the wrong direction. And after speculating at great length, he said something that really caught my eye, and that was that, oh my son, if bad people try to mislead you on this subject, don't listen to them. There are a lot of Greek statements from the Stoic philosophers who he doesn't approve of. And for example, he says, Socrates is reported to have said, how come we never ever see you sad? And Socrates responded, I never allowed myself to become attached to anything, so that if it ever got lost, I would feel bad about it. And that's, the Rambanus is the enemy of what Judaism is about. So in that light, as I said before, every story is unique, and there are people here who knew my mother, and as I look around, many did not. She was born in a completely different world, obviously. She was almost 100 years old. She was 95 years old. Actually, almost 96 in October. And that's simply not just a long life. If you live in the United States of America, so it's a long life. If you lived in different continents and different environments, it's different worlds, completely different worlds. That means that she was born prior to the First World War. Not the Second World War, the First World War. She was born at a time where she lived in was called the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which obviously has not existed since 1918. Although anybody remembers Rabbi Herzberger, the founder of this show, and others of that generation, they always said the biggest mistake of the 20th century was when Austria-Hungary went down the drain, because the Jews had it good over there, relatively speaking. And my mother was born in a town which later became part of Slovakia, Czechoslovakia, but at that time didn't exist. At that time it was all part of the Kingdom of Hungary. You see, the Austrians grabbed a big chunk of Central Europe, and the Hungarians grabbed the other big chunk of Central Europe. And between them, they held pretty much the whole of Central Europe, whether people liked it or not. And the Jews in Hungary, the Kingdom of Hungary, were not necessarily all Hungarian Jews, but they had it relatively well prior to the First World War. Okay. They had it pretty well prior to the First World War. The Jewish religion was an official religion. It was respected. It had a legal status. There even was two Jewish religions. There was the Jewish religion and then the Orthodox Jewish religion, each one represented by the government, in the good old-fashioned Robinson Crusoe story, the Jew on the island with two shoals. And the Jews in places like the towns where she lived did not suffer from legal discrimination and all that. It just was a difficult life economically. But even there it wasn't so bad. Hungary was the promised land, believe it or not, the Kingdom of Hungary, prior to the First World War in terms of economics. Hundreds of thousands of Jews, including my mother's parents, immigrated to Hungary, not to America, to Hungary, in the 1800s, early 1900s, because where they lived in Galicia and a place like that was unbelievable poverty. There was really starvation. The economy really stunk for a variety of reasons. And you had very horrible social phenomena, without going into too many details, resulting from this kind of starvation. I'll tell you again, 100 years ago, the Jews and others were dying from not enough food in Galicia. And one of the things people could do was cross the frontier, the Carpathian Mountains, you go to Hungary, and there you might not become a millionaire, but you can open a store, you can get in a business, you're able to make a living. And that's what my mother's parents did. So they were Polish Jews who moved into Hungary, and her father got a job as an insurance agent with a big insurance firm from Vienna. So I don't know much about him. He was a Hasidic guy, and he was a Chassid, and he was. My mother was used to recount in her tales. They had a reputation of being very